Hello and welcome to True Terror Files. Today we tell you a story of maritime mystery. In 1900, the light went out. James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur disappeared. Their raincoats were missing and doubts abounded. What did the 1901 investigation reveal? The silence was terrifying there. Without further delay, we begin our dark story today. To understand the horror, you must look towards these islands. Sailors call them the Seven Hunters. They are black, sharp rocks emerging from the ocean. In this desolate place, the ruling class built a tower. The Eilean Mor Lighthouse was completed in 1899. It was just 1 year before everything changed forever. The structure measured 23 meters in height. It stood atop a towering cliff facing the sea. Its light was vital for ships in the darkness. However, its location was a trap of absolute solitude. 3 men had to rotate to keep the flame always alive. The environment was hostile, and the weather was very violent. There, the wind strikes with a soul-breaking force. The stone walls were the only refuge against the abyss. In 1900, this outpost was the frontier with the unknown. The watchers were trapped in a prison of water and salt. No one suspected that human engineering would fail against the ocean's hunger. Tragedy lurked in every gust. Soon, the sea would claim what was rightfully its own on that rock. Imagine yourself on the bridge of the steamer Archer on that December 15, 1900. As you navigated the icy waters of the Atlantic, you would notice something deeply disturbing. The powerful light of the island's lighthouse was completely extinguished. Absolute darkness enveloped the rock where the only guide for sailors should have been shining. Despite the gravity, the captain's report did not reach the lighthouse board in time. Protocols failed and administrative silence extended for several precious days. Meanwhile, the ship Hesperus awaited orders to set sail from the Scottish coast. But a fierce western storm lashed the sea with terrifying violence. Gigantic waves and hurricane-force winds kept the vessel trapped and helpless at the dock. At the coastal station, the officers' concern grew like a dense shadow each night. The families of the 3 keepers looked to the horizon, searching for an answer that the ocean concealed. What kind of unspeakable tragedy was unfolding on that solitary rock? The absolute silence from the shore already foreshadowed a truly terrible end for those 3 men isolated in the icy abyss of the north. On December 26, 1900, the Hesperus cut through the waters towards Eilean Mor. Captain James Harvey expected to see a sign of life, but only found a wall of silence. He fired a rocket that tore through the gray sky. He sounded the siren with a deafening roar. No one responded. On the mast, the regulation flag was not flying. On the dock, there were no prepared boxes, nor men waiting for the relief. Joseph Moore, the relief keeper, felt a cold that did not come from the wind. Upon disembarking, the stillness was absolute, an unnatural calm that hung heavy in the air. While his companions waited in the boat, Moore began the ascent towards the tower in complete solitude. Each step on the stone staircase echoed like a sentence. The silent lighthouse seemed to observe his progress with terrifying indifference. Something was very wrong on that desolate rock. It wasn't just the lack of protocol. It was the feeling that time had stopped before his arrival. The horror was beginning to manifest itself in a very terrible way. Upon entering the lighthouse, Moore was met with a deathly silence that chilled the blood. The doors were closed but unlocked. In the kitchen, the wall clock had completely stopped, marking dead time. The plates and pots were clean. On the table, a served meal suggested a sudden interruption. An overturned chair on the floor was the only trace of haste. The most unsettling thing appeared in the tower's changing room. Marshall and Ducat's raincoats were not on their hangers. However, Donald MacArthur's coat was still hanging there. This represented a terrifying anomaly for any experienced seaman. Why would a man go out into a storm without his protection? That act broke all safety rules. As the wind howled, Moore understood the gravity of the discovery. Those objects told a story of inexplicable urgency. The table set for ghosts, and the abandoned clothes painted a picture of pure panic. Something forced the men to leave desperately. The 3 keepers had evaporated, leaving behind their only defense against the icy abyss of the ocean. The stillness inside the walls was more terrifying than the storm that raged fiercely outside. After the bewilderment over the absent oilskins, the logbook revealed a nightmarish atmosphere. Moore read the last pages with a lump in his throat. According to the chronicles of the time, the December entries mentioned winds of terrifying force. Thomas Marshall, a seasoned sailor, appears in the notes weeping inconsolably. For his part, the veteran James Ducat was unusually quiet and somber. The psychological tension within the stone walls was suffocating. The entries describe a storm so violent that the three men began to pray fervently. However, here arises the most unsettling fact of this chronology. The meteorological records from nearby coastal stations did not detect any storm during those dates. For the rest of the world, the weather was clear and the sea calm. What climatic monstrosity were they witnessing in the solitude of the rock? The last entry was made on the 15th at 9 in the morning. It only contained a final sentence. The storm has ended. The sea is calm. God is over all things. After those words, the record ceases forever. There were no further explanations, only the echo of a prayer in a tower that would soon be submerged in absolute silence. Time stopped just before the mystery devoured them. Upon leaving the tower, Superintendent Muirhead headed towards the west jetty. What he found there defied human logic. At 33 meters above sea level, the iron railings were bent as if they were simple threads. The metal, forged to withstand decades, appeared twisted by an invisible and colossal force. That was not the work of the wind, but of a direct impact. Near the shore, a concrete block of more than 1 ton had been torn from its base. The sea displaced it several meters from its original position with terrifying ease. The supply boxes, heavy and robust, were reduced to splinters scattered among the black rocks. It was a scene of absolute devastation that did not fit with moderate swells. Muirhead understood that only a monstrous mass of water could reach such a height. Those physical proofs pointed to a catastrophic event, a rogue wave of epic proportions. However, the mystery persisted in the freezing air. How could they have been surprised by such fury? The ocean left its scars, but these three bodies never appeared there. On December 29, 1900, Superintendent Robert Muirhead disembarked on the rock. For him, it was not a bureaucratic formality. He personally knew the missing men, and his grief was profound. After analyzing the damage to the jetty, Muirhead drafted the official report of 1901. His theory solved the enigma of the third man. Marshall and Ducat went down to secure the equipment against the storm. Suddenly, a monstrous wave reached them. MacArthur, from the tower, must have seen the danger or heard their desperate cries. Seized by panic, he ran out without his waterproof jacket to try to rescue them. Muirhead concluded that the sea dragged them all into the abyss. It was an accidental death caused by an unexpected wave. This version closed the case for the government but did not alleviate the investigators' torment. Muirhead never overcame the loss of his friends in that cursed tower. The official report spoke of physics and negligence, but the family's silence told a much sadder story. 3 lives were lost in a fraction of a second. The investigation concluded, although the shadow of doubt never left the island of Eilean Mor, the mystery remains alive even today. Beyond the waves, an invisible enemy existed within the walls. The human mind breaks after 14 days of constant storm. Documents from the era suggest that the relationship between Thomas Marshall and Donald MacArthur was very tense. In such a confined space, a small friction quickly turns into an abyss of hatred. The keeper's regulations were relentless. They had to keep the flame alive at any cost. This extreme pressure could have unleashed the third man phenomenon. It is an imaginary presence that arises in survival situations. Furthermore, the wind on the rocks generates infrasound. These are vibrations that the ear does not perceive, but which cause unbearable anxiety and visual hallucinations. So, what if Marshall wasn't crying because of the external tempest, but because of a mental nightmare? The constant roar of the sea can induce states of deep psychosis. Perhaps the danger wasn't outside on the cliff. The true horror might have been born in the silence of a dinner where no one dared to look each other in the eyes. Three men broken by solitude before the ocean claimed them. In 1971, technology replaced man, leaving the tower in a mechanical silence. However, the fate of the three guardians remains an open wound in maritime history. Between the rigor of the Muirhead Report and the shadows of folklore, the truth remains submerged in the icy Atlantic. Subscribe to discover more unsettling historical enigmas. May the sea guard you from its secrets. Until the next file from True Terror Files.